Hi, I'm Squeaky Moore, author of 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to, and you're listening to Chasing Dreams with Amy J.
Welcome to Chasing Dreams podcast with Amy J. Amy believes that realizing a life without regrets is achieved by taking chances, chasing your dreams, making moves, and overcoming your doubts. The Chasing Dreams podcast will help you overcome life's obstacles, believe in your potential, and inspire you to face your fears. And now here's the woman who is passionately pursuing her dreams, Amy J.
Hey, Dream Chasers, this is Amy J, and you are listening to episode 121. Happy New Year, guys. We are now into 2018. What an amazing time. This is a brand new year, brand new you, and I have a fantastic guest to kick off the new year. Her name is Squeaky Moore. Regarded as the pitch guru for content creators, Squeaky freelances as a development consultant and pitching coach. Some of her more recent directing and producing credits include 64, a project on father-absent homes that she executive produced and assist directed, Father's Day, also produced by Squeaky, that addresses the effect of absentee fathers, which debuted on the launch of Magic Johnson's Aspire TV network, The Positive Controversy, a show in which she developed and is the showrunner, and Face of Darkness, Journey to Healing, a documentary film that explores depression and suicide in the African-American communities. She is the author of the book 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to, a film and television pitching guide for independent content creators about the do's and don'ts and strategy of pitching television and film projects. Now, she's very busy. She's been traveling, and she just got back from the West Coast, and we found some time to get together. So I'm really glad that she could make it here today to kick off this new year. Squeaky, how are you? Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing really well.
Now, you wrote a book about your mistakes.
Right.
That's brave. Yes. You didn't even just write about one mistake. You wrote about 100 mistakes.
Oh my God. Yeah. And, I believe really the goal was that people didn't waste as much time as I wasted learning from my mistakes. But mistakes are the way we learn. Mistakes, that's how we become the successes that we become, because of a bunch of failures and a bunch of mistakes that we've made. So, absolutely.
Now, you are on this track and you're on this path of development, production. It's not the easiest area. It's also an area that's not oft talked about, at least about, for Dream Chaser, people who want to do that. But is this something you always wanted to do?
Yep. Since I was 11, I started out, I transitioned within the entertainment company, but my dreams are still the same. I started acting at 11.
Wow.
And all of my degrees are in acting. I went to performing arts schools. And then I knew it's still storytelling, but I just wanted to take a stab at being behind, not in front of the camera. And so I transitioned into producing for the stage in Chicago, which is my hometown. I started mounting plays, some that I had written, some that I had licensed, and directing them because I wanted to take a stab at directing and creating for the stage. And so I did that. And then I moved to New York to pursue more acting. Really, it was based out of a fear or a failure, what I perceived as failure from producing stage plays. And I moved to New York to pursue acting. And then God, I'm a believer in God. And so he would land me back in a producing setting, but it was for film. And I was bit by the bug in 2009. And I've been wanting to. That's kind of where I've been staying behind the camera. I do, I still act, believe it or not, but the behind the camera is what really sets me off.
So you
and gets my juices going.
That's actually, the fact that you can still stay in the area you started out in. It's just a different capacity, right? That's fantastic. But what I enjoy is the fact that you were open to the idea of transitioning. I mean, you said it was failure that kind of helped with that was that, do you just have an open mindset? I mean, because most people take failure and like me, I would cry in the corner.
Yeah, no, I did for 9 years, actually. But I just in general, I'm extremely ambitious. I've always been a risk taker, and I am very open-minded and very optimistic. Like, I'm the person I'm just going to believe. I'm just optimistic. I just believe that things will go the way that I want them to go if I keep trying, if I keep doing it. And so, but I failed. And I look back in retrospect, I didn't fail. I didn't get the right outcome, but I had done the right things, everything that I had the power or the knowledge to do at the time. And it wasn't a fail at all. But, if, a lot of times we think that if we don't see the outcome that we envisioned, then it's a failure. We perceive it as failure. And so that's what had happened. And it was so damaging to me that I shut down for 9 years. 9 years is a long time to shut a dream down, right?
I mean, that's about over 3,000 days.
That's a lot of days.
That's a lot of days. But I mean, you said, and I'm going to talk about this because that's actually an interesting point of view. You said that you didn't fail. You didn't get the outcome you expected, but you didn't fail.
No.
What do you mean?
So I had decided, I had went from doing like plays where I would mount them for a weekend, right? Or like, I'm going to do it for these 2 days or 3 days this weekend. And I would sell tickets. So this last really innovative, really creative idea that I plan to bring back, by the way, I decided that I wanted it to just do this long run. And meanwhile, I was doing it off of my own money because I didn't have the wherewithal to get investors and things like that. So I mounted this. I went into a rehearsal for like 8 weeks and mounted this show that I was going to do for a run. And it was going really well, but I just didn't have the funds to wait it out for people to catch to get with it, know that it exists and to get with it. And media had just started to get with it, but I just couldn't keep it going. So I had to fold it. And for me, that crushed me. For me, because I didn't do the run, I just perceived it as I failed. It didn't do what I had set out to do, and I failed. And it was for me, it was so big in my eyes at the time. It was such a huge disappointment that I just couldn't I was afraid to take more risks, and I was afraid to put myself out there again because I failed. Looking back, I'm like, girl, you just didn't have the money. That's it. It was a great product. It was so good. In fact, like, you just didn't do it the right way. You should have probably sought investors but you didn't fail. Like, come on, this is amazing. You were amazing. And so, but it took me 9 years to see that. More than 9 years, actually. 9 years is when I got back into the game, but it took me more than 9 years to see it.
Oh, okay. So I have so many questions about this because that is common for people. When something doesn't go their way, we view it as a failure and we shut down because it's like, well, that didn't work. Therefore, nothing will work. And, you said 9 years. That's a long time. I'm sure there are other people listening to this that experienced something very similar where they shut down probably for a year, 2 years, maybe even to this day. How did you overcome that in 9 years? What happened on the 9th year that didn't happen before? Were you just not ready?
Before then?
Yeah.
So I had a friend who was about to produce 64. It wasn't 64 at the time. She was going with a completely different idea. And we're talking, and we weren't even really good friends at the time. We were just still getting to know each other. And she was talking about a producer that she had, and she was just having so many problems with getting her idea off the ground. And I'm there talking to her, and I'm suggesting, why don't you do this? Oh, you should do this. Or you should do this. Or how about this? My instinct kicks in, and I'm just like telling her what to do. And so she's like, yeah. And then one day she's telling me about her father and the relationship, the abandonment she felt. And she was so passionate about it that it's almost like when you recognize a story and you say, like a reality producer, recognize that these people are unique. This story is unique. It needs to be told. And I'm like, why are you doing that other stupid
Stuff.
story? This is what you should be doing. You're so passionate. Like, surely you're going to have lots to write about there. This is what you should be doing. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, you sat and talked to me for hours. You have enough inside of you to write this. And so she went on that journey. She started writing, and then she was like, well, would you produce it? And immediately that fear gripped me. And I was like, I'll think about it. And it took me 30 days because I could not. I didn't even realize. What happened was I didn't realize that I had hidden, or that I hadn't dealt with the failure for 9 years.
I just kind of
moved on and I put it behind me. And I hadn't realized that the reason I shelved those ambitions were because of fear. But when that fear gripped me and I was like, no, because what if it doesn't go right? What if it, and my mind just started working, and I'm like, oh my God. And I'm really big on the mind, or the subconscious mind, and how it works. And I believe that once I recognize fear, I believe that that's the very thing that I have to do in order to rise above it. So my mind just automatically triggered, like, wait a minute, that's stopping you from doing something that could be awesome. And so I said yes. I just said I like to squeeze time out of the equation when I'm dealing with fear. And so I was like, yes, I'll do it. And then I was just telling myself, I'll worry about the fear and everything else later. And it was through that process that I realized, like, wait a minute, why did I stop this? Because again, I had such an instinct for producing. It was just natural. And I knew I just needed to get back in there and just do it. And I started dealing with myself. And I'm like, I am very analytical. And I start analyzing, like, what was that? Why did you stop for 9 years? And I realized I fooled myself to believe, like, I told myself, oh, you're going to move to New York because you want to act. And you're not going to focus. People, they were like, when are you going to produce another play? When are you going to do this? When are you going to do this? And I would say, oh, I'm focusing on my acting, because I don't want to waste my pretty years. This is what I would say.
Wow.
But it was really because I was so afraid, and I was too afraid to take failing or taking the risk. And so I would just use that as an excuse because I just couldn't wrap my mind around the idea of trying and not succeeding. And so she was the catalyst. That whole project was a catalyst for me getting back into it. But I like to say that was a God thing. I'm like, it wasn't just ironic.
Oh, no.
that I got back into it. It was like, no, that was a God thing.
Because I'm glad you said that. Did you not have this kind of an opportunity in 9 years where you just away? I mean, you were going for acting. So did that kind of
thing happen? The behind the scenes didn't happen, or I pushed it away.
Right.
Saying,
out of mind.
I'm like, no, I would say, when people ask me, why aren't you doing this or this? The opportunity never presented itself in this fashion that the girl had presented itself to me. It never presented itself that way. But when people would say, oh my God, you were so good, you should do this, you should do. And I'm like, oh no, I'm focusing on and I believe, I just begun to believe that lie.
Because you kept saying it over and over. And, after a certain point, you're just confident with it. I mean, so because of that, that's why I'm like, I don't think it was a random coincidence that you had this conversation, this catalyst, this Kickstarter for you to kind of make a comeback. And I don't think I honestly don't think it was a fluke for you to go to New York under pretenses to act. Well, it's like you your dream was still there and it was fighting its way. It took 9 years, but I mean, did you feel so when you have that rejection, right? It's easy to feel like you're just kind of immune to it. You talked about how you kind of said the lie about, acting is for me. That's the thing. But did you ever have moments by yourself where you thought about it? There were not like, I don't know. There were times, like particularly the one show that made me fold, being in New York, being in Harlem, which
I always say is greatly suited for that production. You know, every now and again, I would go, "Oh my God, this is the perfect place. This would have been the perfect place for that show," right?
Right.
So those situations came up, but I just honestly I was dealing in so much fear that I just didn't play around with the idea much outside of those little thoughts here and there. I couldn't bring myself to play around with that. I mean, that fear gripped me. Well, that failure gripped me.
I'm sure it did, because it sounds like you weren't ready. You know, in 9 years, you were building yourself, you were learning, you were still doing, but it sounds like you weren't ready at that time to move forward. And there it was, the opportune time, and events came together, they aligned, you know, to make this happen. The fact that you overcame it, and I'm sure it wasn't easy. And, you know, in those 30 days.
Well, that was very hard. And I dealt with a lot in those 30 days, but it wouldn't be until from 2009 until 2014, believe it, another 5 years passed. And I had at that time maybe produced two to three projects, but I still had a lot of work to do to rise above those feelings of fear, of failure and fear. And even to get in front of, you know, because at that time, from 2009 to 2012, at that time, I was just like, you know what, it was easy for me to produce other people's works, because it meant that in my mind, this is how I played it out. I was working, I was doing the things that I love, but if it failed, it was on them, the creators, the writers, right? And so there was still a lot of things that were holding me back. And I had a mastermind group that, you know, this group, it was 4 of us. We dealt so deeply into the psyche and into the goal setting and strategy, you know, strategizing around our goals, that it forced us to deal with where our heads were at. And it was through all of that work. And even furthermore, when I got to myself and I started doing a lot of self-development, that I realized, one, that I had little faith. The faith of an atheist is what I like to say, meaning my belief was very blind. My faith was blind, or it was just nil, next to nothing. Or I was operating in such extreme fear, and all of that made me not value the work that I did like I should have been valuing myself and my work. And so there was a lot of work that I had to do in order to grow my faith, in order to rise past the fear. I didn't realize just how deep my fear was, or the fear of failure was. And even something as me looking at the fact that play failed, right, made me say my work must not be good. Somehow that's the way it registered. So those were a lot of things that it took me from 2009 to 2012 to even face that and to deal in that type, even though I was still working. But there was so much that was being revealed as I went deeper into analyzing why I thought the way I thought. And then it would go, you know what, I remember the moment when I was writing an animation, a live action TV show, creating one so that I can set out to pitch it. And I remember I was so gripped by fear. I kept trying to reach out to people, including that first girl, like, hey, write this with me. Hey, I went to a script doctor. Can you do this? And it seems like every person that I tried to go to, they just wouldn't come through. They didn't have time. And I remember sitting there, and I remember almost just coming to the realization that this was a bridge that I had to cross by myself in order for me to believe in myself and in my worth and in my creativity, and that I could do it. It was for me to face it. And I knew that that's what this was about. And that was the start of my uphill journey. That realization, me crossing that bridge and creating that show on my own.
I mean, it also sounds like this isn't something that just it definitely sounds like it doesn't go away easily, and that it was an ongoing process. And
it's still ongoing.
right? Yeah. So that's my thing. Here we are, the beginning of 2018, and a lot of us probably have fears like you did. And you had an event that kind of brought it together, but it sounds like you kind of knew what that fear was when you first saw it. Is that something? Well, so when you first went through the failure and the play not doing as well as you wanted in your mind, right? If you could, for someone who's, starting off the new year, is there a way to identify fears, do you think?
Yeah, I do think I do have a way. So again, I go through now is my time. Starting November, I start going through a huge development stage where I'm pinpointing all of, I look at my goals first, and the things that are still not where I haven't seemed to make them happen, or week to week, because I check in on my goals every 2 weeks, right? With my accountability partners, I check in every 2 weeks. And so when I see things that are still that I haven't tackled at all, it alerts me that there's something there. And then I ask myself, it's really about asking the right questions, asking yourself or probing yourself to get to the bottom of why. And I think if you ask why enough, you'll get to the core of what's going on there, core of the fear. And so I'm like, why am I not doing this? Oh, and initially it's like I'm putting it off on other things or, people or whatever. Oh, I couldn't do it because of this or this and this and this. But when you keep saying, but why couldn't you do it? A lot of the times it's revolving around fear. Some sort of fear is stopping me from completing this goal. I don't believe, or it's a belief system. I don't believe that they would actually say yes to me. Or I don't believe that I'm smart enough to fill out that application to get the grant for it. Or I don't believe that I could actually do I have everything that I need to be able to get this production company up and running? Or, so it all comes down to a belief system. And then it all comes down to there's a fear there, or a worth issue, a fear issue, or a faith issue for me. So I start looking deep into my goals, and I think that's where I find it. That's where I find I can locate by what I set out to do and what I haven't touched. I locate the fears and all of those feelings or those issues that I have from that.
And you're actually looking at it differently, because you said, in the beginning, you said, you failed, but you didn't really fail. It's one way of looking at it, because you did do well. It just didn't hit the goal, have the outcome that you expected. Now, you have taken that fear and you've kind of worked on climbing over it. And you've created this book of 100 pitches, failing essentially so others don't have to. And you wrote a very good book, by the way. Guys, I so highly recommend reading this book, because she does talk about what she went through. And you not only talk about the actions and the steps, but the mentality of what people will feel. That's the interesting part, because you say, and you don't push it on anyone. You say, here's how I look at it, and here's how I went through it. And I think that's interesting, because it's very hard to own up to 100 times things don't go or create the outcome you expect. Was that a brave project for you?
So again, I'm a jumper. I just, I recognize, again, I face fear now. I can look at fear, and the thing I do is I just go face it. So initially it was just some arbitrary number. I'm going to do 100. I didn't realize how huge 100 is, especially when it's contingent upon someone else saying yes to me, right? It's not like I'm saying I'm going to knock on 100 doors. Well, I have all of the wherewithal to do that. I can just go and knock on 100 doors, and as long as I get them to open, I can ask. If they shut it, that's fine. But I can do that. But this was based on someone else saying, yes, talk to me. Yes, I'll give you 5 minutes of my time. And so when I threw that number out there, I was like, I got started. I got to work. I'm like, oh, what the
What did I just put my
freak did I? Oh my God. And I put it out there. Like, so I've been known to put things out in the airwaves on social media nowadays, but I put them out there, even if it's with just my accountability partner. And sometimes I do that so that I can't chicken out, because I know it's something, it's triggered it's a trigger in me. If I said I need to do it, I don't want to be a liar. Right.
Right.
And that is what drives me. And I put it out there and I'm like, what the heck did I do? Like, why would I put this out there like that? So it became very hard, I think, on my 10th call, on my 10th attempt. I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking? But, initially the goal, I just jumped without thought. But the goal it really was to rise above the rejection and to face the fear faster, right? I wanted to be able to become a master at no, not hurting me, or the outcome not affecting me doing the thing that I needed to do. And so it became easier call to call or meeting to meeting, or because my perspective changed over the course of this time, right? Each after 10, it's like swimming. You swim, you say, I'm going to do 20 laps. And those first 3 is like, they're like
the tough
super
ones.
hard.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They're the tough ones. And then at some point it's like, oh, I can do this. This seems to be easy. It's okay. After the 10th one, where I really was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it. It's just the work itself is hard. Forget getting to the yes or no. It's like the work is hard. I wanted to give up, but I learned that my perspective changed, right? I learned that it wasn't about getting a no, because I was still winning in essence, because no matter what I did, I was coming correct. Like I'm going to have amazing stories to tell. I was going to make start building great relationships once I got in the door, once they said yes. I was going to come to them right. And even just doing that allowed me to grow my network and build relationships where people and where they respect me and they have an open door policy. So even if it was a no, it was a yes to the fact that I can always come back and with another idea and another idea and another idea. And that was a win. And so my perspective had changed over time, over the time of pitching, but it was very hard and it was very scary. But I no longer look at the no the same, or the failure, the outcome the same. It doesn't, I try not to let it stop me.
Well, it's almost like you made pitching an Olympic sport and you just kept practicing and practicing and practicing at it. And what I love though is, as you said, your perspective changed and you've shared that. You were very honest about it in the book. And right now, when you said, you put it out there, I'm flabbergasted at how many times, like, you must have built a thick skin. Is that true? Or was it you just approached it differently because your mindset was different? It wasn't about thick or thin skin.
I think it was a mindset. Yeah, I think it was a mindset shift. I think I had developed the thick skin over the 9 years. The moment, not over the 9 years, but the moment I realized over the 3 years, from 2009 to 2012, that work is when I developed the thick skin. Because the thing is, once you have risen above something, once you have faced it head on, is when that skin changes. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like those 9 years is when I was super thin. I could be hurt easily. Anybody could tell me anything, and what they said went. You know what I'm saying? Like, or how I perceived what they say went, and all of the other thoughts that played into it thereafter. Right? Those were the ones that stuck. And so that's when I didn't have the thick skin. But the moment I faced it head on and I decided to do the digging and to do the work and to say, no, I'm going to get to the bottom of why I feel this way. And the work that it took for me to change my thoughts around all of this, which is every morning, 5 a.m.er, where I'm waking up, I'm affirming things, I'm I'm doing affirmations, declarations, I'm visualizing. It's a whole process that went into this to get me where I'm at today, to have this mind shift. That was the thick skin, right? That now I'm like, that's where the thick skin came from.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So,
It sounds
yeah,
like it.
I guess into short, what I'm saying is that you get the thick skin by facing the issue. So once you're risen above it, that's when you're like, okay, nothing anyone can say. And even if they do, just listen, I was in Chicago, and Chicago particularly was a very rough tour stop for me, between the market and the people, and it's my hometown. And I just thought, again, it's what was in my head. In my mind, I'm coming home to Chicago. This is going to be the best tour stop. I can't wait. And it was everything but the best. It was like really tough market. It's very segregated in Chicago, between the races, and then it's segregated between the different sides. It's just the city. It's just completely like, it was a tough market to penetrate. And it brought me down to tears. And I promise you, I went on Facebook Live. I did a live, and I didn't expect to cry on a Facebook Live. But here I am being honest and being open, because I felt like it's become my mission to talk about my failures so that I could rise above them, or my mistakes so that I could rise above them. And so I take to Facebook Live to say, hey, here's some of the things that I almost gave up. And I really did. I wanted to give up on the tour. It was so hard in Chicago. And the tour was amazing, but it was just tough. Everything about it was tough. And I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I go on Facebook Live, and I tell people why, and what happened, and what I learned from the process, through my tears, by the way. And so even then I wanted to give up, but it was something about talking to people that it's probably still being circulated, that Facebook Live video. It was something about purging that, or talking to everyone, that was the healing part, right? What I discovered, thinking about it, analyzing it, and then saying, hey, learn from this. That was the healing part. That was the part that made me go back out there and finish the job. And so we have to deal, rather than when I didn't do anything for those 9 years and I just let it be.
Yeah.
I wasn't dealing with it. But when we're dealing with it and we're analyzing it, and so that we can grow, that's when we're able to get back out there and finish the dreams.
That's tough. I gotta say, of all the tour stops, and you have a number of tours: New York City, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Philly coming up. To go home and have that kind of an experience, I think the fact that you had a different mindset is so helpful. And I think you guys, with this new year, we got to have a different mindset towards failures and mistakes, and the kind of mindset you have. And that's something that you guys got to work on.
Yeah, it's a lot of work that goes into that. I think this book, now that I'm thinking about it, it was therapeutic. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to be told no. You go into it like, I'm going to face all of this rejection. And what's funny is I didn't face much rejection. The fact that I can get executives and whoever, because, half of the book is my journey, and the other half is me, profiling different executives. And even those were pitches. Like, they don't, if they don't know who I am,
they're not just going to talk to you.
Right. Then they're like, yeah, let me do this. Like, the biggest thing I learned on this journey was to just open my mouth and ask for what I want. Ask big. Don't ask small, because asking small is going to get you the no. But when you're asking big stuff, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be told yes. In fact, part of my journey, part of my goals when I was writing the book was I set out to do 30 big asks. That was the number. I'm going to do 30 big asks. I was going to ask one majorly large thing in each day in a month, right? And then I was like, well, the first couple of days it went so well, I was like, but wait, I have all of these goals this year. Like, I have to write a book. I have to do all of these different things this year. I need to up my asks. And I just became hungry to ask big. And out of all of I'm probably on 500 asks by now, big asks. I'm talking about, hi CEO, can you give me some time? I would like to meet with you type of asks.
That kind of brave ask that you just don't, if you told a stranger that, you'd be like, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Shonda Rhimes, trust me, Shonda Rhimes was on one of my asks. I was like, I'm going to ask her to mentor me. Let me do that. Oh, let me put that down, because the idea of asking big, it has to be things that you wouldn't ordinarily ask on any given day. And so, but what's funny is I probably got 2 no's to date. And even from I didn't get any no, but the 2 no's. And I have a few people that didn't respond, like Shonda Rhimes. She didn't respond, but it wasn't a no.
And when you say no, do you mean a flat out no, or?
Like a flat out no.
Okay. So you could have gotten an alternative.
I mean, well, some alternatives were I'm not going to respond.
Okay.
But believe it or not, some people were just awesome. Even if they couldn't do it, even in the 2 no's, like Mark Batterson, I don't know if you are familiar with him. He's a preacher, but he also has like so many books, so many best-selling books. And I decided one of my big asks were to ask him to mentor me on faith, because that was one of the areas of development. And they got back right away. And it was the sweetest response that you can't even get mad at the no, right? It's like, oh, they're so sweet. I have an open door. When I go back, if I have something else to ask, I can ask it. But so that's one of the things that came out of this journey of 100 pitches, right? If you're going to pitch and you don't have representation, you have to be willing to ask big, like of people, of your network, of people you don't know, so that I can make that happen. And I learned that that's almost the key to doing the things that the big goals that, to setting out to do the big dreams that we have. That's the key. Right? We're not masters at everything. Henry Ford wasn't a master at anything. He was ignorant.
Yes.
But he had people who, that were masters at what they did. And that's how he became Henry Ford, the Ford that we all know him to, everything that he has done or had done. And so he had to ask a lot of people to help him to be brilliant at what he did. And so,
the thing I love is that this project of yours seems to have so many lessons in it. I mean, not just, well, it's for pitching, for entertainment, for, those with creative projects and whatnot. I feel like you can apply your lessons to life. I mean, what you're talking about, doing the big asks and things like that. I mean, that was my take. I don't direct or produce anything, but I was learning from what you were writing.
Absolutely. In fact, now I'm speaking, I'm doing a lot of speaking engagements, and, I do workshops on pitching, and I actually coach a lot of clients that are not even in entertainment. They're business owners and people with product who are maybe going to pitch Shark Tank or HSN or QVC or whoever. And I realized that part of my journey was for them, for the people that I coach. I spend a lot of time, maybe 80% of my time, telling these amazing people that have created these businesses, created these amazing products that are in stores like Walmart or like major products. And I spent a lot of my time helping to build them up, helping to say, girl, you are worthy. Girl, this is amazing. What are you talking about? Really, you think? And I'm like, gosh, we're the biggest bunch. All of us as a whole, we're the biggest bunch of, most insecure. I mean, all of us are struggling with value and worth issues. And so I spend a lot of my time now talking, in fact, gearing, I've been prepping for keynotes, this keynote that I'm going to have based on these subjects, because I know I'm going to have them, because I see the value in it. Yes, I went on a journey to pitch 100 times for my career, but what I learned out of that journey and the stuff it's really about life lessons, everything. And it doesn't, even the book, there's so many lessons in there that that can apply to any industry that you're in, And I believe that everything we do, we're always pitching, whether we are being intentional about it or not. We're always presenting ourselves where people can look at us and offer us a job contingent upon how we present ourselves to them. And so we're always pitching. We're always pitching.
So I have to ask, because you wrote such a wonderful book. In your experience of those 100 pitches, which one at this moment stands out the most to you?
Oh, God. Well, the worst pitch I ever had was with Robert Townsend. And it was the worst pitch, but it was the pitch that taught me how to pitch. Because it was with him that I learned how to storytell, how to tell a story. And so pitching, and again, it's a general lesson for anyone who needs to pitch, who wants to pitch, who is going to pitch, whatever they're going to pitch. Everything about pitching is telling a story, and it doesn't have to be an entertainment. It's how you deliver the story. And so with Robert, he got very frustrated with me because I was reading from my pitch deck. He got mad enough to not slam it, but like close my MacBook. In my mind, I'm like, what are you doing? And I was so livid. I was so angry. I had a partner at the time, and I just almost shut down. And she went and he was like, just tell me the story. Just tell me the story. And she went on to finish sharing what we had created. And eventually I got back into the game and started talking, and we kept piggybacking. But it was the first, I didn't get it then because I was like, after we finished, I said, I just want to say, I wanted to slap you, right? And it took him off guard for a little bit. He was like, huh? And we both laughed, but I was like, oh my God, I was so angry, but thank you so much. And I think it was 3 pitches after that I started. It was like a repeated lesson of storytelling. And I'm like, there's something to the storytelling part. Let me slow down and figure out, what am I not doing? And like, what am I missing here? And so, it was the pitch that taught me everything that I know about pitching. I think the key to pitching, I would have to say he was the lesson.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I would have reacted, but I think I probably would have froze. Like, what?
Yeah. My pride and ego, all of that came forward.
Sure. I think it's a natural reaction for it to do so until you build up that practice that you were saying, Yeah. And you could change the way you react to things. Now, I don't know if anybody who had been a veteran at pitching, do you think you would have handled it differently if it had been number 97?
Would I have handled Robert differently or
that experience?
I don't know. Because, honestly, in general, I think I have a gift of saying what I feel through jokes and fun. And I can get away with a little bit more than most people couldn't get away with because I know how to deliver that, I think, when I'm not like, being so serious about which is most of the time, because I'm not. I know we're having this conversation and I seem like I can be serious, but I'm really not. I'm a big jokester. So I probably, now I'm very open to critique and I'm very flexible now. So it really depends on the energy in which it came. If it came the way he did it, I probably do the same thing, I guess. Yeah. I probably would do the same thing. I
Maybe it's that if it had been number 97, you would have been better at storytelling.
Yeah. 97. Listen, through all of those pitches, and as I continue to pitch, I still am learning new things. Like the industry, I think changes with technology changing every 3 days, and it's always something new that I'm learning. And so I hope to remain open-minded that one day somebody's going to tell me something. Listen, Chicago was one of those. You know what? To answer your question, Chicago was one of those moments for me where I ran into someone, and this was what made this also added to it being so horrible. but I ran into someone and we differed in opinions on pitching. And so, yeah, that affected me in some kind of way. And it took me some time to rise above that too. I handled it really well and we both laughed at it. And so I think I handled it the same way that I did with Robert. But we agreed to disagree in a very nice, nasty way. And
I just
went
love
about
how
my
you said
business. Yeah, I
Just love
was
how you
very
said
nice,
that.
nasty about it. And like, whatever, chickadee. But I think we all have to be able to listen to things and
Sure.
figure out what's critique, what's constructive and what's not.
Oh, that's
And
huge. Yeah.
I do believe Robert, I know almost that Robert was really being helpful. He just really wanted to get at what's the story. And he was trying to help. And it came off a certain kind of way, but
The
he was
intent
right
behind it.
at the end of the day. He
Yeah.
was right at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I can't go off of anything else, but he was right. Now, sometimes the truth hurts. And so maybe that's what I dealt with at that moment. But this recent situation, I think there's a bit of foolery behind that. I'm like, whatever, chick.
And
Okay.
we all experience that kind of challenge, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
In some
We
way,
have to be
shape,
able
or
to
form.
discern what's right and what's not. And
What's helpful and what's
yeah. And
Not
throw
worth your
away
time.
the bad
There
advice.
you
You
go.
got to throw it away and you can't linger on it too long. You have to allow yourself the time to play around with it or analyze it. And then when you analyze it, you choose this is not good stuff. This is not
Yeah.
positive. And I'm going to throw it away. If in years to come, I find myself reflecting back on that and saying, dang, she was right. I was wrong about this. Then, then years from now is when I'll accept that.
Well, you're not wrong. I mean,
No.
we all kind of have to face that. Now, Squeaky, you've been dropping knowledge bombs left and right. I got to ask, though, it's a new year, new start. Dream Chasers listening to this. What is one thing you would tell them to do today to chase their dreams?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
I know.
I think the idea of chasing the dream is that like we all have this purpose and we all have this dream and we have to be settled on what we have to set the goal and we have to set before we start reaching out. I mean, pushing the dream, we almost have to put it in writing. What am I willing to go through to get there? And I think too often we're creating we have these dreams that we set out to do, but we don't have the contingency plan for failure, right? We don't put that in there. We don't strategically place that plan, for the alternative in there. So what happens if it doesn't happen the first time, the second, the 10th, the 100th, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? How long, what does that look like for you? Look at Z. And what does that look like for you? And what are you willing to do to get there? And setting that at A, right? You have to set that at A so that you know. But too often we set a dream, we have the big picture in mind, and that's all. And we go out to do it. But in our minds, it's just going to go A, B, C, and it's going to go in that order. And we're not going to get off track and get off the path. So that's not life.
No,
right.
it's not.
And so now I said in my mind, okay, I know because I'm trying to get there, there's going to be so many forces that are going to come up against this greatness that I have to be ready for it. So it's going to take me, there's nothing that's going to get in the way of me reaching this particular dream. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put checkpoints in place. I'm going to put metrics in place, whatever it is, put those in place so that each month now I'm checking in on, I'm using these metrics to say, how is this going for me? What is it? Do I need to recalibrate? Do I need to create a different plan so that I can still reach this outcome? If it keeps failing, is it something that I'm doing wrong? But I'm going to get there, and we have to set that. So I would say set the plan for the forces to come against you and know what you're going to be willing to do to how much you're going to how far are you going to be willing to go? And you may say, I'm only doing this 100 times. Maybe that's your A/B testing. After 100 times, if it don't work, that's it for me. I don't know. But you got to get to 100 times before you quit.
Right.
But set that. So I would say, have set some type of plan in your mind for your dream, for the things that are not going to go as planned.
I love it. That's fantastic advice. Squeaky, thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show and share your story.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is so awesome.
And Dream Chasers, that was Squeaky Moore. How crazy is her story? 9 years held back by fear, overcoming it, now chasing her dream, wrote a book, fantastic book. You should check it out. And just all the lessons she shared. You guys can find more information about our book, about Squeaky, the lessons she shared over at chasingdreamshq.com/episode 122. That's episode 122. Yes, this is episode 122, not 121. My bad. It's a new year. Go with it, okay? We make mistakes. You got to learn, live, do all the things. So go check out the show notes page, chasingdreamshq.com/episode 122. And until next time, guys, keep chasing.
Thank you so much for listening to Chasing Dreams. Amy would love to connect with you and hear all about your pursuit of chasing your dreams. Connect with Amy on Twitter at AmyJ21. That's AIMEEJ21. Or leave a comment on her website, chasingdreamshq.com. We hope you'll join Amy next week. And until then, keep chasing.